Which deceased celebrity public figure was horrible when they were alive, but people treated them like a saint just because they passed away in a tragic or sudden way? Mark Salling. The amount of people on Twitter who were genuinely sad that he died was staggering. He was a literal pedophile and they were crying because he ended his life to avoid the charges he was getting hit with. I will never have an ounce of sympathy for that loser. Thomas Edison was a totally dick. Bob's Burgers did a whole episode about it, in fact. John Lennon treated his first wife and son horribly, slept around on Yoko. Paul McCartney takes a lot of ridicule, but he was married to the same woman for 30 years and treated her and his kids like a good husband, father should. Hey Jude was written about Julian Lennon when he was trying to make Julian feel better after John was being an abusive dick yet again. Puts a whole new twist on the song. It's a sad story of an upset kid whose dad is a monster. His quasi-uncle is trying to tell him to take the pain and use it to become better than John was to those close to him. It was all Paul could really do at the time. This might be controversial, but Caroline Flack. She had a relationship with Harry Styles when he was 16/17 and she was 32 in the early 2010s, when her career was really taking off, which wasn't really talked about much at the time. The main event that brought her to mind was the assault on her boyfriend at the time in 2019. She beat him while he was asleep because she thought he was cheating on her. Clearly she wasn't well. She had a long history of issues with her mental health behind closed doors, but the photo of the scene looked absolutely horrifying. She took her own life a couple of months later, which of course is very sad. Regardless of her mistakes, this is a horrible outcome, but the amount of "be kind" discourse I saw afterwards was a bit jarring. She did get some criticism in the press and online. Of course she was going to. She beat the shit out of her boyfriend. It seemed like after her passing it was all forgotten, and she sort of became a symbol against online hate. Hugh Hefner was a weird one. Built an empire on exploiting women and there was a lot of but he was a cool, great dude, going around when he died. Brooke Shields asked him to not publish nude pictures of her that were taken when she was 10. He still published them. It boils my blood that he's buried next to Marilyn Monroe. Even in death she doesn't get to have peace. I saw people posting, "RIP," about Henry Kissinger, which is absolutely batshit to me. Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never stop wanting to beat Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. You will never again be able to open a newspaper and read about that treacherous, prevaricating, murderous scumbag sitting down for a nice chat with Charlie Rose or attending some black tie affair for a new glossy magazine without choking. Witness what Henry did in Cambodia, the fruits of his genius for statesmanship, and you will never understand why he's not sitting in the dock at The Hague next to Milosevic, Anthony Bourdain. Rick James was a violent misogynist. James Brown too. I'll say it, Paul Walker. Dude was a pedophile. All his friends knew when he was alive, it wasn't some big secret. He used to pick his girlfriend up from high school when she was like 14 to 15 and he was in his 30s. No one said anything. After he died it started to come out though, but for the most part people still just brush it off like he wasn't chasing very young girls. He used to be one of my favorite actors too. Now he's just a disappointment. Jimmy Savile is at the top of this list. What irks the hell out of me is that the red flags were bigger than Red Square, yet people ignored it because of the social good it did. The BBC is extremely culpable in enabling this monster. I don't know that people thought of Ryan O'Neal as a great guy anyway, but he was such a piece of shit. The way he treated and physically abused Tatum is seething. Yelled at her because she won an Oscar and he didn't. No wonder she was so fucked up. Did not feel bad when he died. Kobe Bryant was a rapist and serial adulterer. And notoriously arrogant and disrespectful. He tends to get a pass for two reasons. 1. He's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. 2. He died, with his daughter, in an incredibly unfortunate and unlikely accident. A very sympathetic way to die. John Wayne was openly racist, and not in the "it was a different time" way, and he tried to deck Sacheen Little Feather during her Oscar speech. Michael Jackson's reputation improved so much after he wasn't around to tarnish it with weird, creepy, predatory behavior. Dianne Feinstein. Hear me out. She was the third most wealthy sitting senator. Her husband Richard Bloom owned Bloom Capital. Before he owned Bloom Capital he helped start Corinthian colleges. He then went on to become the majority shareholder for ITT Tech and Career Education Corporation. These are in the top 5 worst for-profit education scams. As a senator, she presented and passed bills that would eliminate oversight to these schools and funnel more taxpayer money into profits at the expense of the borrowers who were scammed. She also voted to eliminate any consumer protection like bankruptcy. She often invested her own money in the millions and collected on the shares as a vested interest in her husband's business. Millions of people, mostly low income, older, and POC, who just tried to better their lives through education will spend their entire life in crushing debt while she died with bank accounts full of their money. It gets worse. Mr. Bloom also became the regent of the entire California UC system. This means he was not only in charge of the portfolio, like investments, endowments and pensions. He was also responsible for setting tuition. He had the UC system heavily invested in ITT, and when it came to light they were scamming people and ended up folding, he fired professors and raised the tuition at every UC campus to cover the loss. When other schools around the nation saw these schools raising tuition, they followed suit. So our student loan crisis, yeah, you can thank Richard Bloom and his wife for scamming millions. Not just the borrowers but also the taxpayers who fronted the bill in the first place. Also, when it comes up that borrower defense is being cut to fund tax cuts for the 1%, I hope you call your legislator and tell him not to allow it to happen. Folks who get scammed through education should absolutely have guardrails and protection. People over profits. Protect borrowers, protect taxpayers. Thomas Jefferson, especially here in Virginia. Forget about being a man of the times, what he did to other human beings was flat out horrible. But because he was rich and smart and part of the Founding Fathers Round Table, he was given a pass for most of history. He was a hell of a politician but a shit human being. Jade Goody. She was a low IQ, aggressive, shallow racist. But once she got her cancer diagnosis, it was like she was Princess Bloody Diana. I felt bad for her kids losing their mum, but that 180 from the media was insane. Jade Goody. She was a low IQ, aggressive, shallow racist. But once she got her cancer diagnosis, it was like she was Princess Bloody Diana. I felt bad for her kids losing their mum, but that 180 from the media was insane. Paul Walker. Weird people idolize this guy because he was in some cringy car movies. Dude dated underage girls and his fans ignore it like it never happened. Every time it's brought up they freak out and deny it or say it doesn't matter. Just disgusting. Jim Hellwig, better known as the Ultimate Warrior in the WWE, also he legally changed his name to Warrior, I believe. He was an outspoken bigot and blamed social problems on things such as queering, going so radical right that he was demonized and disavowed by WWE. Eventually they patched things up because the owner Vince McMahon, also a scumbag human being, saw dollar signs, and they inducted him into the fake WWE Hall of Fame and he died right after. People in the business hated him. I already explained his outspoken opinions, but the narrative shifted a lot when he died. In the end, it's clear that people's legacies are often complicated, and death doesn't automatically erase the mistakes they made in life. While it's natural to grieve and remember the good, it's just as important to acknowledge the full story, even the uncomfortable parts. This isn't about canceling anyone but about having an honest conversation about who they really were. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think it's fair to criticize someone after they're gone, or should we let the past rest in peace? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thought-provoking content.